Great. So if I love money, I can measure it. I know what my bank balance is. But if I'm doing bhakti, if I'm doing love for God, how do I measure it? Well, here's the beautiful thing. You don't have to measure it. There's nobody taking your test. It's all between you and God. Our spiritual practice is only between us and God. And again, it doesn't matter what concept we use for God. If the idea of God is disturbing for you, just think about the divine universe, the consciousness, love, whatever feels good to you. God doesn't mind. Any name, any form, with no name, with no form, it doesn't matter. But that presence, which is more than just your physical body, that divine presence. So your spiritual practice is just between you and divinity. So don't worry about anybody taking your test. Don't worry about measuring it, in any sort of quantitative way. But it is important to be able to look at our spiritual path and, as my guru Puja Swamiji says, understand, where do you stand? Where do you stand? How are you doing every day? Are you, in Puja Swamiji's words, in peace or in pieces? Or are you, as he says, getting better or getting bitter? So it's important to know these things. Am I moving closer to the truth of who I am? Or am I getting wrapped up in my ego? So these are very important questions to ask. This is a stock that's very important to take. And this is where he emphasizes introspection so much. But there's no measuring tool for my love of God. The only way to measure it or look at it is, how does it impact my life? See, being in love, even if it's love of another human being, even if it's love of your new puppy, it overflows in such a way that people who are in love are nicer people, right? Anybody who's ever had friends or colleagues who fall in love, we all know, first of all, they're glowing. Second of all, they're smiling all the time. Third of all, they no longer get angry when you steal their stapler, or, when you talk on the phone too loudly in the cubicle next to them, or whatever it was, the things that used to annoy them, that they used to yell at you about. Now they're like, no problem, it's all good, People, when they fall in love, in general, regardless of what they're in love with or who they're in love with, become much nicer, much more easygoing. Oh, no problem, cut in front of me in line. Isn't the world beautiful? Right? This is the stereotype of what being in love is like. If I were writing a play and I had to describe a character who had just fallen in love, I would have him sort of move through the world, letting everybody cut in front of him in line, and, giving really big tips to waiters and waitresses and taxi drivers, and, doing his coworkers' work while they were out for lunch. The sort of things that are the epitome of someone who's in love, and that lead us to say things like, oh, someone had a good weekend, or, oh, have you met someone? Because we all recognize something's happened. Someone has fallen in love. Now, I say this because when you love a person, or you're a new puppy, look at how much it changes how you are to the people in the world around you. Imagine if you were loving God more and more every day. Imagine how your life would change. So the way to measure it is, how is my life changing? If you find that you're still yelling at everybody around you just as much as you always did, I would say your bhakti had some room for improvement. If you find that when you drive and somebody cuts you off, it makes you really angry, and you chase the guy down the road, honking your horn, I'd say you might want to spend a little more time on that bhakti. Because when you're in love, especially when you're in love with God, well, the universe becomes a reflection of the one you love. Right? I mean, when you fall in love with a person, you look up, you see the clouds, and you're like, I see your face in the cloud, right? Suddenly you're seeing the face of your beloved in the clouds. You're seeing them in, the froth on your cappuccino. You're seeing, everywhere you look, it's, oh my God, that looks just like the one I love. And the one you love is just a person or a puppy. When you love God, the universe is a reflection of God. And so as your love for God grows and grows every day, you should find yourself looking around and saying, that's the one I love, the one I love, the one I love. In everyone's face, you should be able to see the one you love. And so if you find that you are in love with life, in love with the people around you, more and more every day, then your bhakti's growing.